Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast. Solly here, two-man show tonight. KVV is going to pop in here shortly to talk a little bit of Scottie Scheffler with us, but got my guy TC here. Hello, TC. How are you?
Hey, Sally, happy Memorial Day weekend to you. Hope you're getting a little bit of relaxation in.
We are going to get a little bit of relaxation in. Of course, we'd be remiss if we did not begin the show by mentioning our hearts go out to the family of Grayson Murray, who I'm sure many of you have heard, or all of you have heard by now. He tragically took his own life this past week. I don't have a lot here to say that others, have not said, other than to echo the sentiments shared by many. That's an incredibly sad story. We can't pretend to understand what Grayson was going through. And again, echoing the sentiments shared by the Murray family, and say that if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please call the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the U.S. at 988, or visit their website, 988lifeline.org. I know that mental health issues are not that simple, but it's really hard to kind of come up with the words and react to something that is so devastating. And for those that don't experience mental health issues, it's really impossible to understand what someone might be suffering. The only thing I can say on that is just keep an eye out for signs in your friends and family, and be empathetic towards their battles, even if there aren't signs that is going on, because it's a horrific thing that many people suffer through, many families suffer through. And again, our hearts go out to the Murray family. But we are going to continue on with our show. We're going to hopefully give people a little bit of a break from that devastating news from this past week. We're going to talk about the Schwab, and then we are going to talk about some of the Colonial redo, which we saw on television this past week. Also, some of the Scottie Scheffler news, which feels like it's about a month ago by now. Harry Higgs won on the Corn Ferry Tour. Your guy Blandy TC did it at the Senior PGA Championship. We're going to give you all the time you're going to want to talk about that. KVV is going to pop on a little bit to talk, as I mentioned, some of that Scottie Scheffler stuff. We had NCAAs this past week. We played a little golf up in Wisconsin this past week. We're going to talk about that. Women's major next week. So much to get into. But on the PGA Tour side, Davis Riley joins Stephen Yeager and Officer Brian Gillis as the only people capable of bringing Scottie Scheffler down. A dominant 5-shot win at Colonial, playing in the final pairing with Scottie Scheffler. TC, they were even odds, the two of them together, coming into the final round, while Davis had a 4-shot lead. Did that feel right to you?
It's a little disrespectful.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. A little disrespectful.
Understandable, but disrespectful.
Yeah. 66, 64, 66 from Davis the first 3 days. Colonial had a little bit more teeth to it.
A lot more teeth. I mean, that was a firm, windy golf course this past week. That was a sight for sore eyes.
I enjoyed watching it. I thought they did a great job with the renovation, and the more I watched it, the more I liked it. It didn't bowl you over on Thursday when you first saw it, but the more you dug into it, the more I caught up on some videos and some kind of before and afters. It was really thoughtful what they did, and I thought it made for a much better championship this go around. So I mean, Scottie tied Keegan too. We got to shout that out.
That's right. It's
Keegan,
in there. That's in there.
Yeah, I mean, coming in probably just extremely weary. Shot 72 on Thursday. Made what, a triple?
He made a triple on the 13th hole on Thursday, and I was pretty close to just tweeting like something silly about he's not the same guy anymore after being arrested. And then sure enough, shot 65 on Friday and shot 63 on Saturday, and looked like he was going to come all the way back and do the damn thing, but ran out of steam. And dude, just take a week off, bud. I mean, I know you want to play your home.
Which I think he's doing next week, right?
Yes, he's not playing in Canada this coming week, but newborn at home and all he's been through in the last couple of weeks, I would just say stay far away from a golf course this next week.
Yeah, I would say, driver let him down a little bit today. But for him to T2 after everything that's happened over the last, he's got a baby at home too. Like he gets to kind of, I'm sure he's been sleeping in his own bed the last few days, but no, just a remarkable run for him. And yeah, like I would maybe take 2 weeks off,
What's the next week? I can't think of it off the top of my. Oh, it's Memorial. He'll be at Memorial. Come on.
Yeah.
Memorial rolls right into U.S. Open. That's a new change for this year of them going back in back-to-back weeks. So I'm guessing he's committed. He committed this past week. I know kind of got lost in some of the other news that was out there this week, but Memorial did announce that as well. So
yeah, but I think back to Davis Riley. I mean, came in 151st in the FedEx Cup.
When it moved up
hadn't re
96 spots to 55th.
yeah,
I mean, TC, it had gotten really bad for him, and I don't think I had fully appreciated this. I mean, if you just go look up, his ball striking has fallen off a planet. This was his first top 10 in 31 starts. The last top 10 he had was when he and Nick Hardy won the Zurich, last year, and his last solo top 10 was 37 starts ago. Last year's Bay Hill. He had that great run in 2022, starting the Valspar, where he lost in the playoff there, and then continued great play through for months after that, and then has totally fallen off. And you look at that golf swing, you're like, dude, how does that golf swing fall completely off the map like it has? And he played really, really, really steady golf all day, all week. I mean, those conditions. I mean, if you watch how bad Scottie struggled in those conditions today, it kind of makes it stand out. Like, it didn't look like a spectacular round, but it was once you kind of saw what everybody
yeah.
else was doing out there. And highlighted, capped off by driving it into a divot on the 17th hole. And then, it was kind of over at that point, but he stepped up and out of a divot, hit to 3 feet 5 inches and made birdie, and then got up and down on 18 to win it by 5. Like, it was not in doubt for any moment, really, at any point today.
Yeah, heck of a putt on 18 to finish it off there, and, so he went back with his old swing coach, which, that seems to be a positive thing if you can do that, like, get back to some feels. But yeah, at Pebble, I remember watching him there on the range and just kinda talking to some of the Titleist guys, and they're saying, "Hey, like, his wedge play is struggling. We're trying different grinds here. We're trying different drivers," and yeah, just kinda he was really, really ascending, 18 to 24 months ago, and, kind of capitalized on that now. This is his, really, really other than Houston this year, this was his first top 25. So, um, you know,
It goes to, I mean, he was fighting for his livelihood as of the start of this week. I mean, it's not early in the season, and to have a career week like this, to go win, get a 2-year exemption on top of, he's still got some work to do to get into the playoffs. Really, get into the top 70. He's got to continue to play some decent golf. He's only sitting at 55th right now, but yeah, it was obviously a huge, huge moment for him. His wife there, his family there, Greenside. Got the whole moment, got the whole thing. Welcome to the Wall of Champions from Jim Nance. That was great. So
his mom was wearing a holla hat.
that, I had a
That was
feeling that might come up. I did have a feeling
tough.
that was unfortunate. But rounding out the top 5, yeah, Keegan had a final round 67. They moved him up into a tie for second with Scottie. I was going to get off a joke on 18. Like, do you think Scotty, plays for the solo second here, or does he just, protect the points? But maybe it wasn't the most humorous weekend on the social media apps. But Colin
Yeah, I think
Morikawa, go ahead.
I was gonna say Colin,
Yeah,
didn't putt great, didn't putt that poorly, but still gained strokes putting. But he seems to be emphatically back with his tee to green game. I mean, he was crushing it with the driver, and I think led the field in strokes gained off the tee and fairways hit. So I would
Pine
say he's a
Pinehurst, look out. I mean,
exactly.
second shot
he's
golf course.
he's
Let's
looking
let's let let's say that now. Let's not let Colin sneak up on us at Pinehurst. He snuck up on us in the last couple majors and being in contention. Let's vow to not let that happen at Pinehurst.
Yeah, Sully, I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with Mac Meissner or Mac Meissner's game. I know I follow Corn Ferry Tour, kind of the bottom half of the standings pretty closely, but T5 for him. Kind of a logjam there. Him, Sepp Straka, Pearson Cootie, and Hayden Buckley. Pearson Cootie had a really good putt on 18 to try to get out of that logjam, but that's a big time spot for him.
Sponsor exemption this week. Yeah.
I think he and his brother made the cut, and obviously kind of hometown event for them. So pretty impressive.
What is it? I saw this category in the inside the field thing on the Charles Schwab Challenge, that there is a category for winners of the Charles Schwab Challenge get to select have like 2 exemptions into it. Like, can select 2 people to be in it, and his brother got an exemption from a winner of the Charles Schwab Challenge. I've never heard of this
That's
exemption.
the winners vote. So the previous winners vote. So it's not like the
Wow,
like the previous year. It's not like that. It's like
got it.
all the winners get to vote. Like all the guys
That's
that
kind
are
of cool.
past champs who are still with us. So yeah, it's cool. It's there's a couple little wrinkles with this one that are a little bit old school or invitationally. I'll say so.
It is an invitational. I mean, it's
It
a
is. It is.
limited field event. So,
Yeah,
um,
a lot of high scores out there. You know,
dude. that place
Cootie,
was
Buckley,
That
Robbie
place was
Shelton.
firm. The wind was blowing. Like there were drives going over 400 yards downwind. Like it is kind of the benefit. So if you're not familiar with the redo of Colonial, it's is Gil Hanse talked a lot about this. I think we've talked about it with him on the pod of saying like this is like a nightmare course to do because of the timing, because of like a May event of you've missed out on a fair amount of growing season, to have this tournament and then to shut down the day after the tournament, try to get everything back up and grown in by the time, before winter hits there, where you're not going to be able to grow anything and get ramped up for May. I mean, they've gone through, he wanted to do it in 18 months and it took, they only got 12 months to do this renovation. So some spots on the golf course that did not look great. I think that is budgeted into the model to say like, yeah, year one, this was, look, it played as good as it possibly could have in year one for the firmness, to get the firm greens right out of the gate and just watch guys be mystified by the new greens. That was a bonus for me. That was a great thing. You,
Yeah, I
you
would
can get
say A
past some
plus
of those
plus.
aesthetic. Yeah. You can get past some of the aesthetic stuff that I imagine will not be there next year.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I thought aesthetically it looked better than it had in years past. Even only, yeah, like they turned this thing around in what 8 to 10 months versus, yeah, I think normal would have been. I think Gil would have said, hey, this would have been an 18 to 24 month project. So, PGA Tour had a good video, pretty all encompassing. It was like a 35 minute
Very long video.
feature on the whole thing, and just all the different elements to the project. They moved a lot of drainage, a lot of those tributaries to the Trinity River. Andy Johnson had a good feature on it as well of kind of how to keep the same spirit or the same feeling of the golf course with while also at the same time kind of lowering some of those greens and I think like the club has definitely an obsession with bent grass. Yeah, I think they could have they could have put in Bermuda and made the course even harder, and left it with bent. They've got the coils underneath all the greens to kind of warm it up in the winter, cool it down in the summer. Probably save on some fans and some labor for watering the greens there. But like I think overall, I think the getting rid of a lot of those like concrete and brick uh, walls really along that like 15 through 18. And then I thought what they did with number 8, the par 3 was great. Seven's a lot harder now, bump that back. I thought it was interesting. They took the bunkers out
A, lo-
on 13.
a fair amount of bunkers came out. 14 bunkers came out. 17 bunkers came out. Yeah, I was surprised to see not as many bunkers. Some of that was not following that closely. I'm sure some of the viewers were not
Yeah.
following this religiously over this past year.
Yeah, and then, put a few bunkers in on what was that on 16. Overall, I think they did a, really good job of keeping the soul of the place while at the same time modernizing it. And I think Colonial needs a new logo now. I think that should be the next step for them. Both their logos are tough. I would say, hey, let's move in that direction next year. And then I would say with Schwab, I think it gets so hot and hazy there during this event that I think they need to go away from the white mesh on the build outs too. I think that's, it just like going to Navy or something like that to kind of break up it just gets kind of washed out and makes it look a little bit funky on TV there. I don't know. I'm riffing, I'm ranting, I'm venting here.
Dude,
Little
I have
things.
no
I
response to
wa-
that one. I'm
I
not.
watch too much golf.
I'm not prepared to debate you on the color of the build outs. I'm a big square footage guy on the build outs, but the color of it is not something I've thought about too closely. But
Yeah.
it to see just what firmness can do to a golf course. One guy shot more than 10 under par this past week. I'm
Yeah.
not going to make this a Valhalla rant, but to just show like what a little bit of conditions will do to a professional golf. Because with all the bunkers that came out and the look of it, it looks easier, like to the eye, right? And I guess I'm a teeny bit concerned as the greens soften over the years. Just at first year after renovation, greens are going to be firm almost anywhere. As the greens potentially soften over the years, does it get a little easier? And if you don't get the wind, we'll wait and see. I trust the people that are organizing this and setting this up and maintaining it more than just me sitting here in this chair to say that. But does the first year firm greens kind of give? I don't want to say a false sense of how things are going to play going forward, but it was just it's not always, you're not always going to have that benefit of having fresh greens for eternity, right? And it can be a
Yeah.
wet month in May, and you can have some complications that they just did not have this year. But it was great to see things align for them for the setup to be proper like it was this week.
Yeah. Interesting to see firm greens when this thing's been dart fest,
Exactly.
even with the raised greens, I think over the last, so that's why I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't go with Bermuda. But there's this old school thing, like, it was like growing up in Atlanta. We had bent greens in Atlanta everywhere until the athletic club, in, like, 2002 or 2003 switched over to Champion Bermuda, and, now it's all Tiff Eagle and all that stuff, but I think there's this old school pride in the South of having bent greens still in certain spots. So I was a little bit disappointed they didn't keep some of these greens raised up too. I thought that's kind of a unique challenge there on tour, especially if you can, meld that with some firmness. But I mean, looking at the leaderboard, there's some guys too that pound for pound best player in the world, JT Poston, T12, Lucas Glover, T12, Adam Scott, Mav McNeely, Tom Hoagie, Davis Thompson, Toasty, Finau, like Svensson, guys that are good ball strikers, uh, rose to the top of the leaderboard. And I mean, really, there were only 31 guys under par
It's
this
crazy.
week, which is saying something about the golf course.
Totally.
So
And dudes love this tournament, man. They really do. I'm kind of surprised sometimes coming off a major week how excited guys are to play this tournament and to some of the decent. I mean, for a non-signature event, this is one of the better fields that you see in a tournament. Definitely all summer. I mean, I guess it's not quite technically summer, but once you hit the warm months, these guys aren't turning up for future events like they do this one. But
yeah, so I think some of the Valhalla people are going to come at you for saying Mother Nature and all that stuff. Where I think maybe Valhalla needs to really invest in some of these hydronics or some advanced sub-air systems or something like that. Which I keep hearing
doesn't
that
matter. They're not going back there. We're moved
hopefully
on. We're
not.
moved on from
They are
that.
going to get a Solheim Cup though. I think
Which I
Valhalla,
think
it
is
sounds like, yeah.
the team events, like the Ryder Cup there was not a bust. Like it's actually a great stage for some kind of team event. Like the Louisvillians turn out for that. We're not going to do Valhalla right now, but that's different than
Which,
a
like,
major
why doesn't the
championship test.
Solheim go to Crooked Stick or something? Like, there's so many other places
I
that
know, but
could.
I don't know. The history with the team events, they could get a good crowd there. I don't know. I wouldn't write that off as a good Solheim. Yeah, they're olive branch to our friends at Valhalla. We're going to bring in KVV here shortly, but just to note, you can witness insurmountable deficits turn into unforgettable victories at the Travelers Championship, the Northeast's one and only PGA Tour signature event. Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Victor Hovland, Patrick Cantlay, returning champion Keegan Bradley, and other PGA Tour stars in all 4 days of competition at close by TPC River Highlands. The excitement tees off June 19th through the 23rd. For tickets and information, visit travelerschempampionship.com. The Travelers Championship, there's only one. Like I said, they got Keegan committed, Ludwig, Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Scottie Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Max Homa, and Ricky Fowler. We got a run of events coming up. This was a rare respite of not doing a live show. We're going to be live so many freaking times over the next several weeks as we go U.S. Women's Open into, obviously with the Memorial as well, right into U.S. Open, straight into Travelers. It's KPMG week that week as well. We have a lot of content coming at you. But
Yeah. And shout out to the PGA Tour schedule. There's quite a few tournaments here in a short amount of time that aren't bomb and gouge fests that you have to hit your irons well. They're not putting contests. They're like real golf tournaments. So I think the way the schedule sets up this year, it's pretty condensed. It's nice.
let's bring in our guy, Kevin Van Valkenburg. Hello, KVV. How are you this evening?
Boys, always good to join you on a Sunday evening.
We had some news this past week. The Louisville Police Department held a press conference on Thursday. The police chief noted during this press conference that Detective Brian Gillis should have turned on. Is this a golf podcast? I can't believe I'm about to read these next couple of sentences, but should have turned on his body-worn camera, but did not. His failure to do so is a violation of Louisville Metro Police Department policy. She added corrective action was noted on a performance observation form. So let's put that in the file.
TPS reports.
It came out this past week from the Courier Journal. It said that Detective Gillis was previously suspended for performing donuts with an intoxicated civilian in his police vehicle.
I missed that.
In a business parking lot, and for missing court dates. So shout out to Detective on that one. Additionally, Detective Brian Gillis, who was directing traffic following a fatal accident at the time of the encounter with Scheffler, was involved in 4 at-fault accidents while operating LMPD vehicles. In 2 of those instances, he was ordered to take mandatory driver's training. Also came out this week were a couple videos, one from a squad car that was there on the scene that again does not show the incident, but shows there wasn't a lot to see in the one from the squad car. And there's one video that was highly circulated from a light post that showed. Only thing you can see is Scottie from the foreground from behind a bus turning into the entrance to Valhalla. And you see an officer who I'm assuming to be Officer Gillis running towards the vehicle and hitting the vehicle or hitting Scottie through the window of the vehicle to get him to stop and then removing him from the car and arresting him on the spot. What's your reaction, Kevin, when you see the video and basically everything that went down on Thursday?
I would say that it's going to be very hard the further that the Jefferson County prosecutor wants to take this to get Scottie Scheffler for, I think, anything other than, I would say, failure to yield to an officer's instructions. I think that that's a charitable read on this. The things are starting to pile up where the evidence is just not really in the state's favor or in the county's favor in this instance. Now, there was a report that a television station, Louisville, came out with this week, WAVE, that said that the supposedly a source is saying that the incident, allegedly the first initial contact between Scheffler and Officer Gillis happened where it's being blocked on that camera by the bus there, and that Scottie was, I guess, kind of spooked or something, that didn't really realize that Gillis was a police officer, and that Gillis put his hands on Scheffler, and that's why he drove away. And that allegedly, according to this report, that's where the initial dragging went through, and that in the sort of audio, not video, that is captured after this, that the state, or I guess, the county has not released, that Scheffler sort of apologizes and says it was stupid for him to not heed to the officer. We'll see, whether that sort of comes to fruition. I think from what I can say from our initial reporting, from what I know from a source that said that the initial feeling of the prosecutor was, hey, you know what, we're going to dismiss these charges. Obviously, that changed, at least in the moment of like whether it's going to be delayed, the dismissal of it. The county attorney that came in there, Mike O'Connell, he apparently is not someone who goes to court regularly, has not been in a courtroom in I heard several years. And so I don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole and speculating exactly like why the charges might not have been dropped. But the idea that like Scottie Scheffler is being treated like any other sort of citizen who would be involved in this situation seems a little bit ridiculous. Postponing an arraignment is not something that is regularly fought, certainly not by the county attorney going to court to sort of stand up against this. So already the idea that Scottie Scheffler is being treated like a quote regular person is a little bit absurd. I still think the most likely scenario is that these charges are going to get sort of either dismissed, or it looks like Scheffler's attorney says that they have no interest in pleading down to any sort of thing. So, if they're going to sort of push this all the way to the end, there's still a possibility that the judge in this case could sort of determine, hey, you do not have enough evidence for a felony. If it goes forward and they still are willing to sort of push it and the judge decides that yes, then eventually it will go to a grand jury. But it just seems kind of insane that this has gone on this far and then no one has stepped back to say, hey man, like this is crazy. Like really, I don't think anybody was trying to drag a cop 20 to 30 yards, and we don't really have evidence of that happening on video. So maybe it's in everyone's best interest and goes away. Also in that report, the WAVE, which you can take this as you like, but that even they have a source that says that Officer Gillis is kind of wanting these charges to go away now that he's been harassed, that he's been doxxed, that he's no longer interested in sort of pursuing this stuff. So who knows? Take it what you will, but it's funny. Like we've laughed about like how silly it is to be talking about like world affairs and like human rights stuff on this podcast. And now here we are talking about misdemeanors and felonies and traffic violations and various, sorting through of county attorney politics and such. So,
of many things to address here, one of which is, okay, if this incident happened the way Officer Gillis initially described it, the control in place here is that officers are required to wear body cam footage that would give us the evidence needed to put Scottie away for a felony, right? That's what the bar to clear is in terms of evidence of this thing.
Yeah.
That did not happen, right? They did not. It was not on. That was a violation of policy. Corrective note in his file aside, I think that should have an effect, or potentially have an effect on this case. Now it plays out. Now listen, there is a blind spot in the video. We don't see what happens before he turns left. From a concluding evidence all around this, nobody else that's in the video is acting like that
someone's just been dragged.
A police officer was just dragged. Like, that's not the urgency here, and does not seem like something Scottie Scheffler would do. And there's no video evidence of this. To me, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a judge, but that would seem like a case you just move on from. It seems like there's a lot of ego and pride involved here to say, like, we're not, only bringing more embarrassment and more eyeballs on this bad situation. And again, another coinciding factor here is, like, they released him shortly after and let him go back to the golf course and play a round of golf. Like, if he had just dragged a police officer with his car in a felonious way, is that the way you would respond here? So I'm more confused as the days go by. I don't know what the purpose of that press conference and video release was to say. Like, it didn't support their charges that are against him. So what are you going off of now at this point? Unless there's evidence they have not shared out there. At one point they said, they mentioned that any other videos are going to come out after the legal process, but they also mentioned there is no other video. So that was confusing as hell, and I don't understand any of this. And it's just,
why not release the audio?
Yeah.
If there's audio, I think that would be pretty cut and dry, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that embarrasses Scottie and he laid into him with expletives. Maybe that embarrasses the officer. I'm not sure, but it would seem like, hey, let's get all the evidence out there, or, especially if they're going to try this thing kind of in the public eye, which it seems like this is just politics, right?
Yeah.
It's not really, doesn't seem like justice is at hand here. It's more just, hey, police union, municipal and county politics, re-election bids, maybe beef between the mayor's office and the DA's office, all that sort of stuff seems like it's in play here, right?
Absolutely. And remember, like, this is a police department that has a lengthy history of misconduct, history of being cited by the Justice Department for, misconduct. And so I imagine that is the mayor's job is very tricky in this moment. He's sort of trying to sort of say, like, all right, here's the evidence we have, take it for what you will, and trying to sort of walk the tightrope between, the police union not getting upset and supporting the prosecutor, but also saying, like, God, guys, like, how messed up is this whole situation that one police officer is brought all this kind of, like, really bad PR down on the city of Louisville, and we're sitting here on a golf podcast once again debating, like, whether the Louisville Police Department is behaving in an ethical manner. Like, talk about something that's beyond our scope of expertise. I mean, this is just, like, absurd. But this is, like,
talk about just taking L's. They're just literally taking Louisville shaped L's right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a very good chance, and I've talked to a few more people since, that there is some hope that part of the reason that the delay is that they want to sort of clear up whether any sort of civil lawsuits might result out of this stuff. And as if there's some kind of, like, handshake agreement that those things will go away, that it is most likely that will kind of contribute to moving forward in whatever manner happens from here. But it's, it's a crazy kind of situation. I don't feel bad for Officer Gillis, because he obviously is not someone who I think garners a lot of sympathy in any of the situation, certainly given his personnel file. But I think it's easy to understand how Scottie, like, this shit happens all the time. People get waved through these checkpoints all the time as PGA Tour players. We're literally all coming to this tournament to see these people. You don't want them treated like regular people, right? You don't want them, if you were going to a concert, let's say you're going to a Taylor Swift concert, would you want Taylor Swift, like, to have to sit in line for 2 hours when a traffic backup was there? No, like, you'd probably want Taylor Swift to be waved through in the VIP lane, because we're all going to see that concert. And so the idea that, like, Scottie, I think, was egregiously wrong for, like, being like, hey, I'm going to kind of get into the tournament when other PGA Tour players were being waved around like that, seems pretty silly to me.
KV, anything you want to discuss regarding you had to take an L on the reporting front, despite using careful wordings in your initial report, reporting that as of this moment, the thinking with the prosecution office is that charges will be dropped. That did not end up being the case. Can you give us kind of some insight into the reporting process, why you were right, even though everyone on Twitter wants to tell you that you're wrong, and how there's just no winning that battle no matter what? I'm wondering if you could shine any light on any of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like convincing people that want to just sort of dunk on me that they're, that they don't deserve to get to, and let them. That's fine. Like, I feel like my journalistic reputation is what it is, and I think I've done this for 20 plus years, and if you think like that I made up this source, like, you're an idiot. Like, there's no way that I would do that. I know for a fact that they held a meeting in the office to sort of discuss that they were dismissing these charges. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that they were going to go all the way through that. Like, obviously everybody has a boss, like, right. And there's certain scenarios where you're going to get overruled. And so I think, like, I don't exactly know the specifics of why that initial report got overruled, but I know that the specific district attorney who was going to handle this case was telling people, hey, these charges are going to get dismissed. Like, we're going to move on from this. And normally that's their jurisdiction, right? Like, yes, every single case can be overruled by your boss, right? In that scenario. But the normal sort of course of business is like, hey, if you draw this assignment, it's your responsibility to decide. These high profile cases might get kicked up one way or another. And so at the time, like, very specifically, I said, as of now, the plan is for these charges to be dismissed. And something changed in that. I don't know what it is exactly. And look, if you want to sort of say to me, like, you should have held on to that report, you should have sort of waited until you guys got more confirmation or until the boss had a result, then I think that's a fair point of view. Like, you can say that, and maybe I should have to sort of look at that one and say, like, hey, we needed it. But I felt like that information was, and I still feel like it was, rock solid. And I trusted the source who talked to me about it. And, sometimes circumstances change when those kind of things happen. And if you want to hate on me because of it, then that's okay.
Let's not also rule out that news coming out or that report coming out could have influenced decision making, right? Did that piss people off that word got out and they said, we'll show you? That's a non-zero possibility in all of that.
I did have a lawyer reach out to me and say, who not involved in any of this stuff, said, like, I think there's a non-zero chance that had an effect on it. And, that's fair. Like, it's not my job to sort of worry about the politics of it, right? To sort of say, like, hey, this report might change the circumstances of things. Like, we had that information, we trusted it was true, we decided to go with it, we discussed it. It wasn't just me going rogue. Like, we discussed it as a group and we went forward with it. So, that sometimes, like, circumstances are changed, and that's why breaking news is difficult.
And that's why when you are breaking news and when there is journalistic stuff in there, there's 3 words there: as of now. That's what's included in there, and that's the reason why. You did not say the charges will be dropped. It is what we knew at the time was that as of now, the moment you reported that, the plan was for those files to be charges to be dropped early in the week. That did not come out to be true, but that does not mean the information was not right at the time. A lot of people have made up their minds on that and not care to differentiate between the two things, but that is the difference in actual reporting and not. I don't want to do the actual reporting. We leave that to you, KV. That's why we brought you in. And
all good. I didn't, never did it cross my mind that, like, in this role that I would have to necessarily, like, be talking about, like, legal charges,
exactly.
this kind of stuff, and hearkening back to my days as a court reporter. Like, I have covered some of this shit before. Like, it's not totally foreign to me, but it is
also covered the Ravens.
I have covered a lot of the Ravens. Yeah. Listen, my Joe Mayo scoop held up. Come on.
It's also like, just if you follow common sense, like, it would be that again, unless I'm holding out for, to be dead wrong on this. If video evidence comes out that fully supports Officer Gillis's statement, I will put as many hands up as I can to say I was wrong on this, but it's not adding up as of right now. So,
Ollie, we all know you back the blue. That's your team.
Thank you, TC. We are KV. Anything to add before we dismiss you on a Sunday evening here?
No, I just think it'll be funny. Like, I was joking with my my parents here this weekend. I was kind of joking with them, like, man, like, it's really going to be funny to look back at the end of this year if Scottie wins like 3 majors and think this is what, like, derailed him from chasing the Grand Slam. Like, how how insane is this? You know,
3 majors and the players. Like
that's right. Yeah.
It's
So I think there's a very good chance that before the arraignment that all this could get sort of, dismissed. That's still where I'm leaning. That's still where like another person reached out to me and said, I'm involved in some of this, and that is the direction it is leaning. So, I think
What week's the arraignment? What date?
June 9th, I believe.
Yeah.
So
which is so it would have to be June 10th then, because June 9th is Sunday of the Memorial.
okay.
the
So
week of June 9th, then I assume.
Yeah.
So that'd be US Open week then?
US Open week. Yeah.
What dumb question here. If you're
Yeah.
charged with a felony, or if you have a felony outstanding, or can you leave the country? Like, can he go to the British Open?
He'd have to be convicted of a felony.
Got it.
Even then, like the British sort of head of state would be able to make a determination one way or another whether an exception could be made with him. The State Department would certainly get involved, but not until conviction. And certainly, like, let's say this does go to trial. That's, we're not going to set a trial date probably until August or September or something like that. Like, there's no way that
the trial would probably be next year, and then Rishi Sunak would get up in the rain, call a presser.
TC, he might not be the president. They've just called us an election.
Prime Minister, do not get canceled for that.
Sorry, they've just called an election in Great Britain. So who knows?
Okay, you're gone now. Get out. British elections. KV, thank you for joining and shining a light on this. Have a lovely rest of your long weekend. TC, who is Mizuho? Mizuho is a top global corporate and investment bank.
I was going to answer that.
What's the rhetorical question? You know the answer to that. A powerhouse in Japan as a retail bank, and the Americas is now the fastest growing region for Mizuho's institutional banking division. They're the title sponsor of last week's LPGA event, the Mizuho Americas Open at Liberty National. This is the only event where top junior players compete alongside 120 LPGA Tour players in concurrent tournaments. Saturday and Sunday, the junior and LPGA groupings are combined. It's a great, fantastic format. The leaderboard was stacked last week. Nelly Cordo won for the 6th time in 7 starts in the event. The event's been the buzz on tour. Like, it's players are taking the ferry over from Manhattan to the course. There's incredible perks for the players. It's gotten rave reviews. So that is Mizuho. And for more information, visit www.mizuhoamericas.com.
Solid. That's the official, Japanese powerhouse of the Vision Fund, certainly of the C-suite. Right. It's our investment bank of choice.
Thank you for that. You want to take the floor with Blandy here? I know this is probably the highlight of 2024 for you.
Yeah, I would love it if we could edit in from the player or from the PGA
We're not editing this in.
Preview podcast.
We're not editing this in.
When I said I called on the PGA of America to grant Blandy an exemption.
No one is denying that you said this.
The KitchenAid Senior PGA Tour. I'd been talking about it on Twitter for a few weeks. Prior to that, I said there would be a big asterisk if Blandy wasn't in the field, as he's one of the preeminent olds in the world. Sure enough, he shows up. He rocks up to Benton Harbor, to the Nicklaus course up there, and he wins the damn thing. In all seriousness, he beats Greg Chalmers, fights a weather delay today. Played rock solid. He was 36-hole leader. I legitimately thought I was up in Wisconsin with DJ the last few days, just hanging out, and I legitimately thought about taking the ferry across from
You're a psychopath.
Milwaukee to Ludington, and then driving down to Benton Harbor. I wanted to get home, but man, I'm just like, I really did want to be there because Blandy. It started as a bit. And I think it's really cool that, like, the fact that the guy found his form at like 48.
It's unreal. Like,
he's been on like a 4-year heater now, and he's made like 14 or 15 million dollars. Like, I don't think he got anything from Live as far as signing or anything like that. He just showed up and stole money from the younger dudes. Like, just beat the shit out of him. And I respect the hell out of that. And now he's doing it with guys his own age too. So hopefully this gets him into I know it gets him into the U.S. Senior Open. I've already checked on that. That's at Newport Country Club, June 27th through 30th. That's the week after Live Nashville. So I assume he's going to be playing in that. And then he'll get a week off. Then he'll go to Live Andalusia. So I'll be really curious to see what happens with the Senior Open Championship. That's at Carnoustie this year. That's the same week as the Live tournament up in like Birmingham, like up in kind of northern England there.
That's sick.
Also they've barred him from playing in that the last few years
They
where
should
he's like,
totally give him an exemption and he won't show because he can't miss a Live event. They should totally do that. If you want to
which I think
expose Live for what it is, you got to give him an exemption in there, and he won't be able to be let out of his contract to go play it.
I think that they should let him out. As a Cleeks fan, I would be okay with that. Or they work with the RNA to get him like the late early wave,
Oh no, don't say it.
so that he can helicopter back and forth like Dion. Uh, and then it sucks
Whoa,
today. We're like
Dion. That's what,
yeah,
Blandy and Dion. There's no literally opposite ends of the
it's
spectrum in
about
terms of swag.
400 miles from like JCB's in the middle of nowhere. It's up by like Leeds and kind of in this kind of triangle between like Leeds, Birmingham, and
That's one of the
other
greatest
places up
comps.
in.
That's one of the greatest comps I've ever heard. Blandy's gonna pull a Dion.
But I just think so. He's suspended by the DP World Tour because he hasn't paid his fines because he was a member and he left and all that. And then he's probably not going to play the Senior Players, which used to be a good tournament. Now they just have it at Firestone every year. But I'm curious to see what he does in October and November too, because I would think that this gets him like he wasn't a PGA Tour member prior, so he's not suspended from the PGA Tour or the Champions Tour. And Live finishes up late September. Would he go and play? And like, I think there's 3 or 4 events in October, and then there's the Champions Tour, Charles Schwab Championship there at the end of the year out in Arizona. Does Blandy go and play in that? I think it's going to be fascinating. So, I think Blandy, now that he's won a major, I think he should take on the captain mantle from Keimer. Even though Keimer's playing a little bit better. Keimer, focus on your golf, man. Let Blandy handle all the other stuff.
Keimer's won 2 majors. I think he's on that front. I think he's qualified.
I always forget he won a second one. Blandy had nice things to say. His brother was diagnosed with lung cancer earlier this year. He had a really kind of heartfelt statement after in the win. I think it was with I don't know if it was Jimmy Roberts there afterwards. And then lastly, Blandy's Southampton Saints. They were relegated, I think, last season from the Premier League. They're back. They won the playoff to get back into the Premier League today. And so what a massive day for Blandy. It just brings a smile to my face, and I'm genuinely chuffed for the guy.
Can you I just am reading this that he got an invite last year as well, but could not play in the Senior PGA because of a conflicting Live event.
Well, let's hope that let's get Laurie Cantor or someone that I think we need to create a farm system within the cliques and have, like Blandy is, again, he's not like he didn't get a big signing bonus or anything like that. He's a blue collar clique. We're a blue collar club, right?
Bob Herrick was reported today that his win will not come with the customary 1-year PGA Tour Champions exemption because he's playing for Live Golf. In spite of the win, this is from the tour, in spite of the win because of competing in an unauthorized event by the PGA Tour, he'll be ineligible for tour affiliated events. PGA of America, USGA, and RNA each operate based on criteria of their own.
Which, all right, so he's never been a PGA Tour member prior. How are you going to penalize him for something that he was playing for a competing or conflicting thing? But it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think I fully understand that either. Like why it's an unauthorized event for him if he was not a member. But
yeah,
we're past the bit part of this. We're not going to spend much more time on.
Totally, we're totally past the bit part. And he gets into Quail Hollow next year for the PGA Championship. How about that? That's another clique in the field for next year.
His data golf page is fucking hilarious. Like at age 51, he's approaching a full shot gained per round, which is like close to like top
really
75 in the world. It's insane.
Yes.
It's insane. I mean, he was like just truly negative European Tour player for so long. At this age, he's coming from he won his first European Tour event at age would have been 48 at the Betfred Masters around this time 3 years ago, I think it was. It was like almost this exact week 3 years ago, and now it's gone on to just earn $1 gajillion playing golf in his early 50s. It's insane.
I think he just crossed over the $10 million threshold with Live a couple weeks ago. Talked to some of the Live guys about him. They said he's he's absolutely nasty with his wedges. Like, just knows how to get the ball in the hole. So shout out to Greg Chalmers too. Chalmers has become one of my favorite Twitter X follows. He calls himself the Greggy, and he's just it's great. I've thoroughly enjoyed him.
Harry Higgs goes back to back. He wins the Visit Knoxville Open, another dramatic finish. He finished with an eagle in the playoff over Frankie Sappin. Back to back. Harry Higgs coming back to the PGA Tour. You know, you win 2 Korn Ferry events. You are coming back to the PGA Tour. Could not be. He had a great speech afterwards, kind of talking about Grayson Murray and leaving people with the message to be nice to somebody you know and be nice to somebody you don't know every single day. And whole golf world's rooting for that guy, and to see him come back playing this well, we're just very, very excited for him and very happy for him.
Yeah, cool of Harry to use his platform and kind of grab the mic and say that stuff and use his platform for good. So he's flair for the dramatic the last few weeks too. First guy ever on the Korn Ferry Tour to win back-to-back weeks in a playoff. And he made an eagle putt on first playoff hole today. Sappin's been playing really well too. He shot what, 58 or like, I don't know, 51 a few weeks ago.
52, I think it's one of those.
Yeah, at this point, I can't keep track of it. But yeah, hopefully Higgs. I mean, Tim Vieding played quite well. It seems like the thoroughbreds on the Korn Ferry Tour are kind of separating this year. Hopefully, I'd love to see Harry just, hey, let's go back to back to back and get that Battlefield promotion. Which I think if you get Battlefield promotion, I think you should get into the Aon Swing 5.
Just go straight into the signature events.
Hell yeah!
Why not? Sure, I'll ride with you.
One of the hottest players in the world.
I'll ride with you on that one. Other various golf news. Liv finally announced the team championship at Merido for this fall. I don't know what took so long to announce that. I feel like we knew that for months on months. But
what a bizarre deal! Like what? Like I don't know. Just Merido hosting that, right?
Yeah, I don't know enough about all that, but the individual event being at Bolingbrook, and now Merido's a nice club from everything I've gathered. I've been there, We did a Lee Trevino interview there. That's the only time I've been there, but that'll be this October. Well, a little segment I wanted to do today, TC. We're gonna call this. We can call this either one of two things. We were originally gonna call it Take Sale, where you end up like selling off one of your takes that you've had, but I think we're gonna kind of on the fly here rename this to the Big Randy Morikawa Memorial. Randy has famously bought high and sold low on Morikawa so many times that I can't figure out where he is. After he won 2 majors, Randy was really in on him. When he was playing poorly, he sold him off, and now that Morikawa's back competing in majors, he's bought back in at the top. I was going to throw this. I have one. And I'm going to throw it to you first. If you have one of like, even if it's at a loss, even if you're just willing to wave the white flag, any kind of take you've had at any point that you're going to sell off. You're like, I'm bailing on something I've said previously, and I don't care, if it's at a loss.
Perhaps fittingly, I'm going to sell off my Colin Morikawa 8 majors.
Okay.
I think I can sell it for 5 majors, 6 majors. Not a crazy loss, but I just need more liquidity. Okay. I need to get out from under that one. I need to be able to kind of get that one. And
can I keep the calendar invite for July 2026 just as a reminder? Okay, we will revisit that.
That's fine. Hopefully by that point, I've gained enough on my new investments to make up for said loss. I thought about some of the shade that I threw towards Xander last week, that I threw towards Valhalla, that I've thrown towards Quail Hollow in the past, but I don't apologize for any of that, except for the Quail Hollow stuff, which we went over that last week. But Adrian Dumonte Chassart, thought about that too. But I think the Morikawa one, that sticks with me. Of hey, I got a little bit out over my skis there.
Okay, I am going to sell on a course setup take that I've had, and I think Valhalla kind of
strip of rough.
No, we'll never get over the strip of rough. I'm hoping one year.
TIO? Please tell me it's TIO.
It's not TIO.
That's such a bad take.
It's not. I want Travelers to invite me one year to come and personally mow the strip of rough left of 15. I'm going to put the call out for that one. But no.
Scissors.
Valhalla kind of helped crystallize this, and I've thought about it for a while, and I think I prefer narrower fairways as opposed to wider fairways in pro golf. Now, if you let me unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
again, I'm not on the extreme end. When they get too narrow, I think it can be kind of silly. Like, sometimes when they get really firm and narrow, it just becomes a silly test, right? Winged foot ended up being pretty silly, but at the same time, Valhalla needed narrower fairways. There was like no consequence. They did not have the balance right on the consequence of a good tee shot, right? And I think I'd rather them err on the narrow side than the wide side, which is not consistent with takes I've had in the past. Now, they're
I
just
think so, Solly. I'm just. I want you to consider and beware that I think you're painting with a broad brush here, because I think on pro golf setups, major championship setups on bad golf courses, I think you're correct.
yes.
I think
I'm
on
gonna
major
get there.
championship
I'm gonna get there.
courses with good setups, good
We're
greens,
gonna get there.
firm greens. Okay,
We're gonna get there.
just making sure.
Yep, we're gonna get there. I still think equipment that makes the ball go too far has driven us into this like unwinnable Goldilocks situation of too warm, too cold. Like but I still think at the pro level there should be some consequence for hitting the ball offline. But now again, on the world's best golf courses, this is not necessary because they have good contouring, good conditions that challenge the players. Shinnecock comes to mind. Of they went from 26-yard fairways to 42-yard wide fairways, and like
Yeah.
all of the challenge of the firmness of the greens, the contouring of the greens, the way the bunkers cut in, the wind elements that take place, taking all the trees out of that place, like that still makes sense to me, right? Like that did not feel too easy back in 2018. Granted, that was the year they lost it. It was on the edge, but they lost it. But on a Parkland style, like I'm Valhalla and Oak Hill, like Oak Hill, they're kind of played in similar-ish settings. I know different parts of the country and different grasses, but like
Southern Hills too.
but I preferred Oak. But Southern Hills is really well contoured, right? And,
Yeah.
Valhalla I would not consider well contoured at all. But I preferred Oak Hill to Valhalla by a lot in terms of consequence of tee shots, right? And I've kind of always just been in favor of width in general, and I'm just selling off on like, dude, sometimes there needs to be some rough to punish these guys' tee shots, and that was a takeaway I had from Valhalla. So that's the take I'm selling.
I think the other thing with Valhalla was just, even if it was soft, if they had wide fairways, all of that, the greens just didn't seemingly have any slope in them.
No.
And I
And
think that's a problem, right? And then you get back into fast greens versus, hey, can we get back to a little bit slower greens, and then ball striking becomes more important. You know?
And Data, I got tagged in this by about 50 people. By 50, I mean 5 probably. But the Data Golf had a tweet this week kind of showing a chart of all major championship courses and the courses that best separated based on skill and how high Valhalla ranked on that list. And I thought they kind of followed it up with an interesting, kind of statement on that kind of answered a lot of it, but they said it's understandable why lots of people disliked how Valhalla played last week. The soft conditions turned the event into a shootout, which seemed out of place at a major championship. However, easy conditions should not be equated with a leveling of the playing field. Good shots were still rewarded, bad shots punished. It's simply that the punishment was mostly a lower likelihood of making birdie rather than a higher likelihood of making bogey like we are used to in the majors. Some interesting takeaways they had in the data was that it played easy, but the skill-adjusted scoring average was just negative 0.2 shots per round, which is 10th easiest of 20 PGA Tour courses played so far in 2024. So, like, middle of the pack for PGA Tour courses. Again, my take on it, I think, is very similar to yours. And, like, a major championship shouldn't be a middle of the pack PGA Tour setup by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised because I read that same newsletter, and at first I was like, oh, they're crowning Valhalla, and then I think they basically said, hey, it's identifying the right guys just in the wrong way, essentially.
Well, I think my overall takeaway with it was like it's identifying guys that they consider the Data Golf model considers to be the best players in the world. And the overwhelming data that goes into that is PGA Tour setups, right? Like
Yeah.
Xander stuffs the stat sheet on PGA Tour events, finishes the top 5 all the time. Like the skills that are rewarded out there, driving distance, going as low as you can, blah, blah, blah. We're also on display there. Like it's going to match up really well with their model that matches a lot of the PGA Tour golf, right? Which is like why guys like Brooks stand out to me as the major champions of the generation of like, they don't perform the best. He did not perform the best in PGA Tour events and in live events. Like, but when the golf got harder, he had a skill set that was different and it identified that kind of thing. So that was just thought some interesting analysis and an interesting bookend on the conversation from last week of like it's not that Xander is not an amazing player and that Valhalla isn't like a good test. It's just like the wrong one is kind of where I ended up netting out on that.
Valhalla would be a great PGA Tour venue.
100%.
Like have the Yum brands open there every
Totally.
year. I'm totally fine with that.
Yep.
And that's where a lot of my Xander stuff came from. I know everybody was playing the same golf course and all that, but it didn't feel like a major to me.
Yeah. Moving on from that, we played a little golf this week. You made your way up a little further than I was able to, but you got to play the Lido this past week. What was your reaction there?
I did, yeah. It was God, it was a lot. TJ and I drove over after a few great days at Erin Hills that we had that we'll have plenty of video coming out from. We had a blast at Erin Hills as always. That place is awesome.
So
It's
cool.
it's a big walk, but it's a worthwhile one. There's plenty of variety and I don't know, just it's a really, really cool setting. But the Lido was there's spots where I could see 10, 15, 20 handicaps just kind of chalking it up to randomness. And hey, is it strategy or is it randomness? Like we caught it on maybe the calmest day you could possibly have. No wind. There have been thunderstorms midday, and then the sun came out. And so it was about as benign and soft as you'll find it. And we had a blast. Pure condition. It's as a thought exercise, it's one of the most impressive accomplishments I've ever seen. Like Peter Flory was actually playing in the group behind us. Peter Flory, of course, is the guy that created the kind of canvas or the CAD design within the software program that they turned into, like looked at a bunch of historical photos and drawings and schematics from the original Lido Golf Club on Long Island, and they used that as the basis for, hey, we're going to recreate this thing in real life. And so it felt really, really surreal. It's this massive, vast piece of property, just a big sandbox, and they recreated the thing to the best of their ability. So if you don't like something, blame CB McDonald. Don't blame Tom Toke and Brian Schneider.
You don't want to blame
Uh,
Doak? I don't believe
no,
this.
no. I mean, I no. I thought it was a master. It's triumphant. It's cool. I don't think I'd want to play there every day. Like it's definitely overload as far as I mean on some holes there's 30, 35 bunkers. I mean it's fucking crazy. Um, Number 4, the channel holes, one of the more interesting dynamic holes I've played in recent memory. There's so many different ways to play the golf course, and I can't wait to get back and play it again. I think kudos to all involved, and the conditioning matches the strategy and kind of how it should play. The fine fescue with the bent grass greens and I don't know. The greens are massive. We had great caddies out there. Yeah, I kind of still wrapping my brain around it. Like it's really, really, really wild.
Hmm.
And didn't get to see Sedge Valley this trip, but hearing great things on Sedge Valley, which is about to open up and here in a couple weeks up there. And yeah, they've got 4 championship length golf courses up there, and then of course the sandbox as well. So Wisconsin rules, man.
Mm.
And then played DJ's club, the Wisconsin club. Went in not thinking anything. And so like, were you there when we played Pine Hills in Sheboygan? Did you go over for that?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Okay. So there's this kind of like there's not enough kind of mid-tier, like they're not like top 100 golf courses, but they're better than your kind of average golf course. And so Wisconsin clubs like just this really good piece of land with this 1950s, 1960s design on it. And they've just you can tell over the last 10, 15 years, they've just kept expanding the greens, adding short grass, adding tee boxes, widening it in certain spots. And I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. And I think there's this middle tier of golf courses that keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So every time you actually play one that, is it's a private club, but it's part of concert golf, but I was just sometimes the best thrills are the ones that are super, super unexpected. And I remember turning to DJ after 7 or 8 holes. I was like, "This is awesome, man. I can't believe you belong here." And like, it's not an expensive place to join. And it was the perfect blend of quality and approachability, I think, and I think golf needs more of that. So I wanted to shout it out.
Oh, that's fantastic. It was funny just driving through Wisconsin and passing like some public golf courses this past week. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, for those that don't know, and I was just like, oh, that looks like a course I played in high school. Oh, that looks like a course I played in high school. Like all of these quirky little elevation changes, and I
Yeah.
do. Living in Florida, you don't drive past a bunch of stuff that inspires you to want to go play golf or remind you of anything you saw as a kid or anything like that. So Gosh, and yeah, we'll have a ton of stuff on Aaron Hills, but that was one of the more proper tests of golf I think I've ever experienced. Of just like, dude, I mean, there was, as soon as you try to put your pedal down, like to try to like, all right, it's time for a birdie. Like you just made bogey, like immediately, like you just got your hand caught in the cookie jar. If you want to pound a driver and get in the narrow part of the fairway, go right ahead. But like the feskew's waiting up there and you're not going to have a good time in it. But like, hey, if you want to hit like 2-iron, you can lay away back here and you can easily make par. And like you just playing it, we played it twice and it was just got a couple different wind directions. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it is like, as soon as you finish, like, oh, let me go do it again. Okay, I know how to do that. I can do that hole now. I can do it now. It was totally fair. I messed it up. Now I see it. I want to do it again. And I was just very, very, very impressed with Aaron Hills. First time I'd seen that one.
Yeah.
It gets still, if you're building off of the, the bad rap it got from guys shooting 16 under at the 2017 US Open, you're not doing golf right, because it's definitely a worthwhile place to
They're in Chambers.
Yep.
I mean, it's
Totally.
if anything, they just had tournaments prematurely. I think
Yep.
stoked to see the women play out there
Next year.
and yeah, having two different wind directions, like having two cracks at the same course with two different wind directions is really,
We got
really
wind.
interesting.
Like they did not get wind in 2017. Like we got wind.
We
Like,
got plenty
very
of
real wind. Like it was just like if you're keep your eyes peeled from that video comes out. If you want to see how Aaron Hills would have played in proper wind, we got it. So
there's spots out there that kind of remind me of Karn,
mhm.
where it's Aaron Hills. There's a whole Irish motif out there, but it's pretty it's Irish in nature, not just in advertising as well. I'll say that. So speaking of another renovated or newish golf course, NCAA's.
Omni LaCosta is the new host of the women's NCAAs and the men's NCAAs. Women's was this past week, came to conclusion this past week. Stanford women's golf team defeated UCLA in the championship for their second title in 3 years, their third national title overall. Hopefully people have gotten a chance to see Coach Ann Walker and the Stanford women's golf team in the documentary we did a couple years ago, Week in the Life. Almost all the players from that have moved on, except for, I believe, one, but they some familiar faces in there. Your girl Mega Gane was a deciding factor in the final matches. Rachel Heck won her match, and Kelly Zhu were the three winners as they defeated UCLA in the finals to win their second national title.
Yeah, it wasn't close. They beat USC in the semis. They beat Auburn in the quarters, which Auburn was sneaky good coming in, and then UCLA in the finals. Sadie Engelman, I think, was
That's right. That's what I was going for.
Lone holdover from. But yes, I mean, it seems like they've kind of replaced Rose, and they will replace Rachel, which like they just have like a bunch of like depth of just like a bunch of number two players that are better than anybody else's number two player. Like I don't think they have that far and away number one here moving forward, but they have 7 or 8 ladies that can go beat anybody's number one or number two player on any given day.
Yeah.
So, and then the men are going on right now.
Men are going on now. That'll conclude, I believe, on Wednesday of this upcoming week. Again, it's some of the best work that the channel does. The channel formerly known as Golf Channel, but it's just called the channel now. But they do,
full context here too.
We did work for ESPN last week. Yep.
Some additional context. We did work for ESPN on behalf of ESPN for Omaha Productions.
Correct. All jokes aside, they do a great job with NCAA coverage, and it's not PGA Tour commercial fest. And it's such a relief. I know we work with Omni. You can take all this with a grain of salt, but it is so nice to get away from Greyhawk and out to Omni LaCosta, freshly renovated from Gil Hanse. We have a video up on our YouTube channel with Cody and Cameron Young playing the golf course. Immediate reaction as soon as I saw it was like, damn, I want to play this golf course. Watching it on TV this week, and the depth of that place, just totally different than watching desert golf in May, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So check that out on the channel Monday through Wednesday this week.
54-hole cut this evening. Stanford missing by a mile. They were 19 over today. Thor Bjornsson, who locked up number 1 PGA Tour U, he and Phillips did not play well, nor did Barclay Brown today. So they emceed. Other notable MCs, Oklahoma State. Looks like they're going to miss out. Wake Forest is trying to climb in. Texas Tech 6 under today. They're trying to get in. So, and then it'll go from top 15 to down to top 8 here moving forward. Illinois is currently leading, and Gordon Sargent's playing quite well on the individual side. He's currently T4. Adam Wallen.
This is just coming across the wire. It has been pointed out that the 10th place team in our Live Under War fantasy baseball league, the Oppo Tacos, have won for the second consecutive week. That is, of course, Max Homa's team. He was claiming in our chat that the corrupt golf media would not mention that he has won his second straight fantasy matchup. It does appear he will still be in last place, a good maybe 12 games behind the 9th place team, but he has won in fact, in back-to-back weeks, but he's still, I believe he's 23 games back out of the last playoff spot, but a lot of season left to go. And his team is very, very, very hot right now.
Interesting. DJ and I pulled off a huge trade earlier this week too.
Massive trade. Massive. DJ tweeted
Shook
about
the
that. If you want
foundations of the league.
entirely.
We did?
DJ tweeted it. Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay.
Both me and Randy got blanked this week. It's not great. We're not gonna update you on the whole fantasy situation. This coming week, U.S. Women's Open week on the LPGA side at Lancaster. We're gonna have a preview podcast, I believe, out Tuesday evening, maybe sometime earlier on Tuesday, and if not overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. We'll have a happy hour on Wednesday. We'll have a live show on Friday night, live recap on Sunday night. We'll also have an interview podcast that comes out this Thursday. So we are right back on the grind, pumping out the content this coming week. RBC Canadian Open week on the men's side. Live Golf is off. Tour Sauce episode 7 is out this week from Royal Melbourne West. There are just 2 episodes left in the season. If you are looking to binge, to catch up, now is the time. You'll probably get caught up right about time for the conclusion next week at Kingston Heath. And lastly, we'll be recording episode 2 of the Seamsters Union on the Trap Draw this coming week, the baseball pod. As the Reds sweeping the Dodgers this past week. Is it? We got a question from your fun uncle. Is this the turnaround? It was all in Smartin's mentions about that one. Very weird week. Reds still stink, but we're on the rebound.
I would just say it's RBC Canadian Open week. What is going to happen?
Oh my God!
What announcement is Big J and the squad going to have that they've been saving for RBC Canadian Open week for Hamilton Golf Club or Golf and Country Club, which is a great venue, I will say. That's a little bit farther from Toronto. I think they announced this week that they're going to have the TPC Toronto is going to host, I believe, next year, the RBC Canadian Open, which is up northwest of Toronto. Neil and I, when we lived in Toronto growing up, we used to go skiing up there at Caledon. So curious to see that next year. But I also heard some things, earlier this week / last weekend about Monahan and board stuff. Of course, I think this was post.
It happened on the show, I think, Sunday night last night about Flaherty resigning.
Withdrawing. Yeah. So we'll see what happens here moving forward. I mean, they scrubbed his name from the tour policy board, kind of roster very, very quickly from that. So we'll see what happens, how they replace him moving forward. So
that is the $1 trillion question. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you to TC, KVV for popping on. Our friends at Titleist asked us this evening to just kind of, pass on their ad space at the very top. But we, of course, pass along our condolences as well to the Grayson Murray's family. Shout out to our friends at Travelers and to Mizuho as well. Like we said, we have a lot of content coming this week. We will see you live on a bunch of our shows, and check out our YouTube on Wednesday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, for episode 7 of Tour Sauce Season 9 in Australia. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here later this week. Cheers.
Crack on.